Hey, this is C&D channel. I'm Chris. This is MMA for you. I'm going to be doing my post-fight analysis for UFC 185. Overall, I thought it was a solid card. What I would define it as, it's a really good event as far as showing the technical aspect of MMA. Even though you saw some decisions, you saw a lot of like this guy's game plan, you know, and how game plans work, technical aspects of what, you know, how wrestling works, how wrestling doesn't work, how striking works in MMA. And you got to see that on this card. So I was actually pretty pleased with this card. There were a lot of finishes on the, actually all of the prelims were finishes. And then the main card, Joanna Jędrzejczyk was the only one that got a finish. So yeah, I thought it was, like I said, it was a good card just because it really displayed the technical aspects of MMA, the game planning of MMA, and in a sense, unpredictability of MMA, as both champions are now former champions. My picks weren't too bad. I got 9 out of 12. The ones I missed would be Rafael dos Anjos versus Anthony Pettis, Beneil Dariush versus Darren Cruikshank, and Ryan Benoit versus Sergio Pettis. Bonuses, performance of the night went to, there are 4 performance of the night bonuses. One to Rafael dos Anjos, the other to Joanna, I think it's Jędrzejczyk. I'll just say Jędrzejczyk. That's how I usually say it. Jędrzejczyk, Ross Pearson, and Beneil Dariush. 2 things to note. 1, bad night for the Pettis brothers. Both losing in somewhat emphatic ways too. And by extension, you know, bad night for Rufus Sport. By extension. Great night for Rafael Cordero and King's MMA with his students, Rafael dos Anjos and Beneil Dariush, winning their fights in emphatic manners, actually. Let's get started. Rafael dos Anjos defeated Anthony Pettis by unanimous decision. First and foremost, my hat's off to Rafael dos Anjos. I am eating crow. I don't have any crow on me, unfortunately. But yeah, if you saw my prediction video, I was praising Anthony Pettis so badly, I had to actually scale myself back to give credit to Rafael dos Anjos. And, you know, I made it sound like he had no chance. So, you know, and looking, you know, even going just past the fight right now, just looking at the potential, well, actually, let's look at the fight. One thing that was noticeable, one, is just dos Anjos was the bigger fighter. I thought the more physical fighter and a better conditioned fighter. I was actually reading, you know, it's funny, I was actually reading Conor Rubish's, it's a judo talk, like How to Kill the King, pretty much. And he pretty much, everything that dos Anjos did in this fight, he did to Pettis. And it was crazy. You can't let Pettis kick. So dos Anjos can't, man, that guy was throwing so many left body kicks. I mean, just so many. You have to establish your own kicks against Pettis. And he did that. He cut off the cage. He pressured him against the cage. You know, the other thing that dos Anjos did was he was going move for move. So if Pettis lands a good strike, dos Anjos had to land a good strike. He never really backed down either, and kept pressuring. Showed really good wrestling, and you know, this is the funny thing, because when you watch dos Anjos versus Pettis, and you see like Dillashaw versus Barao, And you're kind of thinking, oh man, like this is like the first time I saw this version of that fighter. Like first time I saw Dillashaw, or first time I saw Dos Anjos. Actually, you know, this isn't though. Like TJ Dillashaw was fighting Mike Easton the way he fought Renan Barão. And Rafael Dos Anjos has been fighting this way. The way he enters his takedowns, I've seen it since this Anthony and Njokuani fight. He would unleash strikes once the guy gets back against the cage. His opponent gets back against the cage. You know, maybe he goes for an overhand or fakes an overhand or something. And he goes for takedowns, and he was always good at transitioning from that striking to the wrestling. He's always had that. It's just, he's had everything. His pressure style, I mean, it's been there for a while, and it really showed against like Benson Henderson, you know, when he TKO'd him. But it's always been there, and this is like him really putting it all together in a championship-like performance. That's the thing. Besides the left body kick, which was effective, landing punch for punch against Pettis, cutting off the cage. He just kept his back against the cage, took him down. Pettis, you know, he was going for that same armbar, and it just was never going to work against Dos Anjos. I mean, Dos Anjos, he wasn't weakened, you know, from Pettis' strikes, and he is a legit Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He just, Pettis was not going to get that on Dos Anjos. So, great performance from him, and just showed MMA. I mean, like I said, just a good technical performance. This is how to pressure opponents. This is how to cut them off, how to keep their back against the cage, mix in striking with wrestling. It's just good technical stuff. And that's why I like this card, because you can actually see just, hey, it's good technical stuff in a different way. Pettis, I mean, in the first 2 rounds looked alright, but for the most part, he was nullified or neutralized. His, you know, as much as I give him credit for being opportunistic, in a case like this, it was like his only pathway to victory. It's like landing that one good kick, landing that one good punch, getting that opportunistic sub, and you know what? It just, if you're counting on that to win, you know, in hindsight, you know, if you're counting on that to win, it's not, it's actually a very, despite the fact that he's finished a lot of opponents, Benson Henderson, Cerrone, Gilbert Melendez, Lozon, others, it's still a relatively low percentage way of winning. You know, it's like, I thought he can win a decision, but, you know, it's, you know, just the way he fights, he definitely doesn't fight in a way to go to decision. He's always looking for that finish, which is beneficial in a sense. It's not like Dos Anjos wasn't trying to finish. I mean, he got the Kimura attempt. He's really hitting him with some pretty hard shots on the feet. But you know, like his style also, it looks good in the judges when they're pressing forward and landing strikes and just landing offense. It's just, you're not backing up. It's a very, visually, he's always going to look like he's going to win. With that said, so Dos Anjos probably gets the winner of Nurmagomedov versus Cerrone. And the thing is, Nurmagomedov beat Rafael Dos Anjos. He is expected to beat Donald Cerrone with his superior wrestling and grappling. The guy's takedowns and throws and whatnot, slams, he has so much variety and he's so good at it. He's just a physical guy. The thing is, that's interesting, in my opinion, I think Nurmagomedov would win a rematch if he gets past Cerrone. I think that pressure style actually kind of favors Nurmagomedov because he wants to get close to his opponent to clinch. So I think that actually, just stylistically, that should favor Nurmagomedov. It makes me wonder if Dos Anjos could pressure Pettis as much as he did. And knowing Nurmagomedov's style of pressuring opponents, especially to get him against the cage, to work his takedown game, if Nurmagomedov could actually work not a similar game plan, just because he doesn't have the striking that Dos Anjos has, and he doesn't have the footwork to cut off the cage. But I wonder if he could beat... makes me wonder if he can pressure Pettis against the cage. I'm sure he could probably get takedowns on him. I don't know if he can hold him down, though. So, it's weird stylistic matchups. Not weird, but just... It goes to show how stylistic matchups work, you know? I've always underestimated Dos Anjos. I've noticed that. After this fight, I'm like, wow, I've underestimated him a lot. I mean, I've picked him to beat, like, Jason High and Nate Diaz, and you know, he should have been, you know, like, Bocek and whatnot, and there's guys I expected him to beat. And then I expected him to lose to Nurmagomedov. But then I never picked him to beat Cerrone, Benson Henderson, and Anthony Pettis. And he beat all those guys. So, I definitely never put him higher than like number 5 of the top 5 when I really should have. I think he beats a lot of guys of the division though. I mean, he already beat Cerrone and Benson Henderson. I think another interesting challenge for Dos Anjos actually would be Michael Johnson. You see his fight against Barboza, lots of pressure, good boxing, whatnot, hits hard. I think Dos Anjos probably beats him, but I think it'd be kind of competitive. Otherwise, guys on the horizon, I really don't see beating Dos Anjos. I don't see like the winner of Gilbert Melendez versus Eddie Alvarez doing it. I think it'd be a good fight. Once again, it's just there's interesting style matchups that work because at least with Melendez, he's probably gonna be in Dos Anjos' face also. I think Dos Anjos beats him. It's just like I think Melendez is a pretty good wrestler and scrambler himself. So like it's an interesting in the sense that like while Dos Anjos was pretty dominant in this, it was at the very least a lopsided victory. Stylistically, you know, I see Dos Anjos beating most lightweights, but I still think that they can pose problems to him. Just because what he did to Pettis, I don't know if he can do to other guys. You know, Pettis needs space. Dos Anjos closes in space. But other guys don't mind fighting in that pocket. That Dos Anjos, you know, and within Dos Anjos' range, you know. But yeah, you know, with Nurmagomedov out there, and he's already beaten Dos Anjos, I can't help but feel that, especially if he gets past Cerrone, that he beats Dos Anjos. I just, you know, I don't know if he can beat him. Or I don't know if Dos Anjos can beat Nurmagomedov. With Pettis, I mean, there's a lot of guys, you know, you can give guys coming off losses, like Miles Jury, Nate Diaz, Edson Barboza, you know, there's good challenges for him. He did look noticeably smaller than Dos Anjos, like I said. I gotta wonder if he might want to even contemplate a drop to 145. Not necessary, it's just, you know, I mean, he's beaten most lightweights, so he doesn't need to do that at all. No, as far as a rematch go, I'm actually not interested in a Pettis versus Dos Anjos rematch anytime soon. You know, just I don't know what Pettis could really do that much differently. You know, I mean, it's easy to say work on takedown defense. It doesn't work that way. You know, it's like, especially if you're setting up punches. You know, he's setting up strikes to get those takedowns. It wasn't just a case of like, oh yeah, if you work on your takedown defense. No, like Dos Anjos would throw a body hook, which would connect, and then go for a takedown you know, right there. You know, it's not just like he was just trying to wrestle him or something. You know, he was setting up his takedowns with strikes and whatnot. So it's not that easy. And then Pettis doesn't really have the strongest offensive takedown ability. It's not bad, but it's not great. You know, he has like you know, with Pettis, he generally, if he can find the opportunistic sub, he can get that. But otherwise, he generally has to win at range. You know, really interesting that you know, parts of the fight too. You know, I remember Dos Anjos took down Pettis, kept him down there, tried to take his back. Pettis got on top, and then Dos Anjos just got back to his feet. You know, it was one of those things where it's like, wow, you know, this guy's beating you everywhere of the game, you know, the fight. Like I said, I definitely underestimated Dos Anjos. Like I said, I'll probably pick him moving forward. I'll probably pick him against everyone in the division except for Nurmagomedov. Like I said, I think a Michael Johnson could be an interesting challenge for him. Even a Melendez could be an interesting challenge for Dos Anjos. Eddie Alvarez, yeah, but man, that guy gets hit like clean and gets dropped a good amount of times. I don't think he's a great stylistic matchup for Dos Anjos. But yeah, you know, we got a new champion. Great stuff, just great stuff from Dos Anjos. I really don't know if the lightweight title is going to have that dominant champion or not. If there is one, it looks like it's probably going to be Nurmagomedov. I don't know if Dos Anjos can be that dominant champion, though. It's just, you know, with being a pressure fighter like that, he gets hit, you know, a good amount of times. Showed really good chin, and he could just eat a lot of those strikes. But, you know, some of those hits against other fighters are going to connect in a way that's, you know, you can't just walk through. That's the thing. Yeah, good stuff from Dos Anjos. Really exasperates Pettis' weaknesses. I knew that he is susceptible to getting pressured. It was just a case of like Melendez would do it, Benson Henderson would do it. You know, like a lot of Guida did it. You know, a lot of Pettis' opponents would pressure him, but it wouldn't like. You know, he still ended up winning. Oh, well, not against Guida, but you know, against like Melendez and Benson Henderson, he ended up winning anyways. But it kind of showed. I was looking at some of the stuff, some breakdowns with Pettis. When he does get backed up against a cage, his footwork actually tends to get really bad because he gets backed up against a cage. He gets squared up a couple times and whatnot. So it's definitely a noticeable weakness in him. I think he gets a little too concerned about trying to get submissions off his back instead of just getting back to his feet at times. So that's not, that's definitely something he's got to work on as well. It's tough to say because with Pettis, I was just reading stuff about the fight. It's like, wow, the guy's been fighting for what, like 8 years now? You know, the drop-off point is like 10 years or something like that. So I don't know if he's, at this point, might just be a finished product. Could very well be. Not to say he can't get wins in the UFC in the lightweight division. He can beat most anyone. That's the thing. It's, you know, as much as I'm not speaking greatly about him now, there are like only like a very few guys I'd pick. There's only like 2 guys in the division I'd pick against Pettis at this point. Nurmagomedov maybe, you know, because this loss kind of really, you know, further illustrated the pressure, you know, him getting pressured And like if he ever fights Dos Anjos again, I'd probably pick Dos Anjos. Otherwise, I think Pettis beats pretty much everyone else. So yeah. Next fight after that, Joanna Jędrzejczyk defeated Carla Esparza by TKO in the second round. You know what? I'm gonna have to gloat. Like, I don't want to, but I'm gonna have to, just in the sense of like there is a really basic way of looking at this fight. And I kind of noticed that a lot of people were doing that. Where it's like, Carla Esparza's a great wrestler. Oh, she can probably take down Jędrzejczyk. Oh, especially since she got taken down by Claudia Gadelha a bunch of times. And it's like, no, that's not... It's a really basic way of looking at this fight. You know, just like, oh, she's a great wrestler. She beat Rose Namajunas. You know, she was a champion and whatnot. Jędrzejczyk barely got by Claudia Gadelha, and she got taken down a couple times by her. And so it's like, and once again, it's a really basic way of looking at this fight. Then when you look at it like with the competitors, but also just in the broader sense of women's MMA, you get a better idea of how this fight would turn out. One, it's something I mentioned in my predictions. Carla Esparza is a good, you know, like, she's beaten and out-grappled opponents that were not refined or finished products. You know, Rose Namajunas and a lot of like her opposition don't have good takedown defense. Beck Rawlings, Rose Namajunas don't have good takedown defense. You know, and you look at her resume and it's just kind of like, usually I don't look at resume and hold it so strongly, but the thing with Esparza, it's like, it's a product of what women's mixed martial arts is right now and where it was. Where it's like, okay, you lost to Aguilar and Fuji, but you were able to out-grapple all this other opposition. But, you know, looking at it closely, it's like, well, some of them are heavily, you know, these are some pretty heavily flawed fighters. You're pretty much the best wrestler of the division just by default, but that doesn't make you a great wrestler for MMA per se. You know, she still shoots from very far away. The way she was shooting against Jędrzejczyk is actually not the first time I've seen her shoot takedowns. You know, I've seen her shoot takedowns from really far away. Watch the Ultimate Fighter fight against Tesha Torres. When she can't really get... She's relentless about getting her takedown game, but she doesn't set up her takedowns with strikes. She's always been pretty bad about that. She's good at reactive takedowns where like she'll duck under her punch. She's not bad at that. But for the most part, she doesn't exactly have... And she does like face shift well. She does try to cut like different angles on her takedowns and whatnot. But she still shoots from far away. She does not set up her takedowns with strikes. She's able to get away with that because women's MMA, quite honestly, like I always say this with women's MMA, they still don't have, as far as pure wrestlers that go into MMA, I can only name like less than 10, you know? And that's across weight classes. So... You know, when she fought Jędrzejczyk, I was like, wow, Jędrzejczyk has really good takedown defense, and when she does get taken down, she gets back to her feet. You know, it's not like Claudia Gadelha was able to hold her down. She's also big for the weight class, and Esparza's really small for the weight class. And the problem with Esparza, and being small for the weight class, she's not a natural striker. She doesn't have other ancillary skills. You know, it's just like, if she can't utilize her grappling game, all she can do is grapple. You know, it's not like she can't really strike. I mean, there was that Jessica Penne fight, but once again, Penne's small for the weight class herself. You know, she doesn't hit hard as well. So it's like, that's like the one case where it's kind of like, okay, as far as I can probably show off a little more striking, because her opposition honestly has just like equal power, equal skill, equal or lesser skill in striking anyways. But that's the thing. Women's strawweights are getting bigger. There are a lot of 125ers cutting down to 115. Nina Ansaroff, Gina Lima, Jacek, I believe, used to fight at 115. Now you're getting like Latornu and Jessica Rakoczy, Kalinda Faria. You know, these are huge for the weight class, and they're getting better and more well-rounded. That's the other thing too. As far as a product of having a certain skill set at the right time. You know, it's not like she's a bad fighter, but she is fairly one-dimensional. And this fight really, really showed that. She just does not have much. If she can't out-grapple her opponent, she cannot do much else. And I hate to bag on her, but like, you know, this was like a fight that I was really looking forward to, and I really wanted Joanna to win in the sense of like, because of like, okay, this is a fight where if you pick Joanna, unless you're a fan of hers, and coming into this fight, she made a lot of fans. I mean, she was like, you know, she was like playing a lot of mind games with Esparza, some trash talk and whatnot. She's got some bravado. She's actually, you know, she's actually one of the better champions for the division. She's kind of like, as far as growing the division and having a champion who is like charismatic, and has an aesthetically pleasing style of fighting. It's really good. I mean, you definitely got a full package, and then she's Polish, so now you can get those like Polish / Eastern European fans behind her as well. So I mean, on the UFC's part, you know, I think they lucked out. You know, I didn't know that Joanna was actually this charismatic too. You know, like I said, she's made a lot of fans just leading up to this fight, and she has an aesthetically pleasing style of fighting. So, you know, a lot of pluses there. Kind of makes me wonder if she did indeed get in Esparza's head, and maybe Esparza even lost the fight before she even got in the cage. But yeah, looking at Jacek, I mean, she punches really well. You know, male or female, it doesn't matter. She is a high-level striker. Throws straight punches, good knees. She's good in the clinch too, actually. Has really solid takedown defense. You know, she showed us really good elbows. So, I mean, she can fight at range, which is her preferred place, but she also showed that she can fight in the clinch as well, and do really well there. So, yeah, just good stuff. And it was actually getting uncomfortable to watch this fight. I mean, as far as it just looked like she did not belong there. She's backing up, getting hit hard, go with some really awful takedowns, and would just get stuffed. Got tired early. I mean, the problem with Esparza too is she's relentless about getting those takedowns. I remember one time she got hit really clean, and she looked like she was wobbled, and then she goes for like a sloppy takedown, gets stuffed, another sloppy takedown. So it's like, wow, you're wobbled, and you're like exploding into takedowns and wasting like major energy. You know, she was not gonna last very long in this fight. But yeah, like I said, I think Esparza, despite everything I said about her, it's just the state of women's MMA right now. As much as I like it, it's still behind in a lot of aspects. Wrestling is getting better, but it still has a long way to go. And Esparza still, despite the fact that I think she shoots from pretty far away, despite the fact that I think she doesn't set up her takedowns or strikes very well, I still think she can get a lot of wins in the division against good opposition too. I think the division is going to see more Joanna Jędrzejczyk, though. I really do. I already see him in Invicta. Alexa Grasso is someone I'm really high on. She probably needs to work on her takedown defense. Her ground game is really good, though, and her boxing solid. I would love to see Grasso versus Jędrzejczyk, like a year or two from now, giving Grasso some more seasoning. Another one that looks solid in Invicta, that's just really well-rounded, Jamie Moyle. She only has 2 pro MMA fights, and she can strike, she hits hard, she can wrestle, and she has good jiu-jitsu. So, what I meant by more Jędrzejczyks isn't like these like really good strikers per se. It's just more well-rounded fighters. That's the thing. You're still getting some like largely one-dimensional fighters, and they're breaking out of the mold of being one-dimensional. You can see like grapplers really working on their striking these days in women's mixed martial arts. Heck, Roxanne Modafferi beat Andrea KGB Lee. Mainly, and a lot of that fight was in striking. So you're seeing a stronger well-roundedness with women's mixed martial arts. Jędrzejczyk has one extra thing that a lot of female fighters don't have, and that's power in her strikes. You're seeing it a little more. You can tell that some female fighters just have it, and some just don't. Carlos Esparza just does not have power in her strikes. I would say the same about Penne. I'd say the same about Tesha Torres. Maybe even Rose Namajunas. Ones that are kind of smaller for the weight class don't show a lot of power in their striking. But yeah, great win for her. Just dominating to the point where it was like almost uncomfortable to watch. As far as who Jędrzejczyk gets next, I'm guessing she probably gets a rematch with Claudia Gadelha if Gadelha gets past Azing Daly. If not, if Joanne Calderwood gets Mirna or gets past Mirna Moraz, is it Mirna Moraz? I can see Calderwood versus Jędrzejczyk as well. Not too many options though. I can't say there are like too many great options. It's still such a new division. What's going to happen is someone in the UFC, like as far as a UFC win streak, that has like a 2-fight win streak, like Calderwood. If she beats Moraz, she'll have a whopping. She's undefeated, but she'll have a whopping in the UFC 2-fight win streak in the UFC. And she can probably get a title shot just off that. Also very marketable too. So that's the thing. Great win from Jędrzejczyk. She is actually one of my favorite female fighters. I was already a fan of hers after that Gadelha fight, but her charisma and whatnot. She's a really good fighter too. Just on top of everything, big fan of hers. I can actually see her holding the belt for a while. If she can get past Claudia Gadelha, I could see Jędrzejczyk actually beating, Tesha Torres, Calderwood, Rose, Penne, Marcos. It's like I said, it's gonna take those, maybe like when Alexa Grasso gets some more seasoning, I can see like Grasso Jacek just being a really good fight, and Grasso strikes really well too. I keep forgetting to mention Jessica Aguilar. I think Aguilar is really good, but man, I think Jacek's a terrible stylistic matchup for Aguilar. Aguilar is one of those other ones that just doesn't have power in her strikes. Really well-rounded, good wrestler. Probably not. I don't think she's as good as Esparza. You know, a much better striker, but Jacek's is way better of a striker in my opinion than Aguilar. So yeah, I can see Joanna Jacek, you know, keeping the title for a while. As far as like Carla Esparza goes, there's a lot of opposition she can fight. She can fight. They'll probably go with like Ronda Marcos because they had that beef on Tough. You can get the loser of like Gedalia Daly, or someone else. You know, there's a lot of options for her to fight. Next fight after that, Johnny Hendricks defeated Matt Brown by unanimous decision. Pretty wrestling heavy, for sure. But you know, it was a good win for Hendricks. He won in the way that was the safest route possible. He didn't like the performance. It's hard to look good against Matt Brown, though. It really is. This guy is tough as nails. You know, I mean, I was actually fine with his performance. Like I said, on a technical aspect, hey, that was some pretty good wrestling. Sometimes with Hendricks, he seems to forget that he's a wrestler. But today, you know, during this card, he showed why he's like a top wrestler, you know? And he was striking relatively well. Brown strikes really well in that clinch. When you get those knees and elbows in there, man, he's vicious. Hendricks was actually landing some pretty good punches, though, on Brown. The few times that the fight was standing, but Hendricks went the safer route. I thought it was a good strategy, you know? Beat a tough opponent, a guy that's hard to look good against. You know, is it the most aesthetically pleasing? I wouldn't really say it's land prey per se. I mean, you know, he's landing some ground and pound, but nonetheless, good win for him. If he gets the winner of McDonald versus Lawler, it wouldn't be the worst thing to happen because, quite honestly, besides maybe like Tyron Woodley, I can't really see. And Woodley lost bad to Rory McDonald. You know, to be honest, I'd like to see Tyron Woodley fight Johnny Hendricks, and the winner of that fight gets the winner of Lawler versus McDonald. That's what I'd like to see. You know, because an immediate title shot, I'm not. Can't say I'm too sold on Hendricks. Wouldn't be the worst thing to do to give Hendricks a title shot, but like I said, I'd rather see him fight like Tyron Woodley or someone else. You know, trying to think of who that someone else is, because like Hector Lombard's suspended, Kevin Gastelum lost his fight against Woodley. So, I mean, Ellenberger won, but, you know, he's kind of getting back on the horse. So, yeah, you know, can't really think of too many people for Hendricks to fight at this point. With Matt Brown, despite losing, his role in the UFC is secure. He's tough as nails. Fun action fighter. If you can keep on the feet, you know, you can always have fun fights. If they want to give him a top guy, give him like Safadine. Give him Dong Hyun Kim. Dong Hyun Kim fighting Berkman. Hey, you know, give him the winner or loser of that fight. You know, Berkman Brown wouldn't be too bad either. You know, so there's still good fights for Brown, but you know, I think his role in the top 10. there's a certain level of guy he's just not going to beat. Guys that can take him down and keep him there, probably going to beat him. But guys that cannot take him down might have a pretty tough time with him. I mean, Robbie Lawler managed to beat him up on feet, but I think a lot of other opposition would have a tough time. I will say this, though, too. When Johnny Hendricks had Brown up against a cage and took him down, I was not... I didn't like what I saw from Brown's takedown defense. I mean, he would wrap his arms around Johnny Hendricks and try and get like a body lock from the back, you know? And I'm just like, what are you doing? You're giving him the takedown that way. You're attaching yourself to his body, and all he has to do now is lift. You know, I mean, you're not like this. I found that to be very improper takedown defense. There was one time where he was just kind of looking to see what to do to defend the takedowns. He just got taken down, and I was like, oh. So there was a couple things, because he's supposed to be working with some really high level wrestlers, but yeah, you know, it didn't look very good. I gotta say, his takedown defense, I've seen it better, but yeah, it didn't look very good here, to be perfectly honest with you. His takedown defense against a cage, well, you know, didn't fish for the underhooks, didn't pummel under, you know, didn't always have the wide base, you know. I was not, expecting a little more from him, because I want to say he was working with, like, some sort of college or some national team or something like that. Some really high-level guys. The next round after that, Alistair Overeem defeated Roy Nelson by unanimous decision. I like this performance. The thing with Overeem, like I said, it was a good technical performance. That's the thing. He moved well. He moved out of the range of the right hand. He picked his shots well. He'd throw a lot of ones, which is fine. You know, he's a heavyweight. I'll say this too. I think a lot of the knees and some of the straight punches that Overeem was throwing on Nelson would have knocked out a lesser heavyweight. Nelson just got this ungodly good chin. Managed to still knock down Overeem in the third round. Still, some concerning stuff with Overeem was when he was up against a cage and just shelled up. Roy Nelson inexplicably went for takedowns. Don't know why he didn't just go for body punches. During that time, they were right there. And because Overeem has some really good takedown defense, it's still a bit worrisome that Overeem would kind of deer in the headlights shell up against the cage, and just allow Nelson to tee off. I think that happened 2 or 3 times during the fight. Still not good there, but otherwise in the center cage, when he was moving, would throw a strike. Good stuff, good knees. You know, he's always had those good knees. Showed a good leg kick. Showed a good straight right. You know, is it a skill set that'll beat Cain Velasquez? No, probably not. Does it beat Junior Dos Santos? Well, Dana White wants to find out because he wants to do Junior Dos Santos versus Overeem next, which makes sense to me. You know, Overeem's coming off a 2-fight win streak, just recently beating Roy Nelson. Dos Santos most recently beating Stipe Miocic. Makes sense to me, but the crowd was kind of booing this fight. I was actually pleased with what I saw from Overeem. We know his flaws. We know this guy cannot take a hit very well. He's kind of got something of a glass chin. Is not the most durable guy. It's not the most. He's not going to get crazy knockouts or anything, but this way. But you know, if he fights more technical, picks his shots well, he will win. And at this point, you know, what's better, winning or getting knocked out? I mean, that's really Overeem's options at this point. You know, it's if he hunts for the knockout, there's a very good chance he'll get knocked out himself. So yeah, you know, I liked what I saw from Overeem. To be perfectly honest with you, I thought that was it's just he has good technical ability. You know, if he fights smart, he can win, and that's the thing. And him versus Junior Dos Santos would be a great matchup next. With Roy Nelson, yeah, let's see who can fight next. You know, he hasn't won since he knocked out Nogueira, actually, if I'm not mistaken. But, you know, he's still a fan favorite. He has a really fan-friendly style of fighting, you know. Geez, who's out there? I don't know, loser of Gonzaga, Krokop or something like that. He's fought a good amount of heavyweights that are out there. Loser of Brown versus Orlovsky. You know, there's good fights for him still. If you want to give him some lower tier guy, go right ahead. Next fight after that, Henry Cejudo defeated Chris Carriazo by unanimous decision. This is the Henry Cejudo that we always want to see. Man, his wrestling is insane. I mean, he would like get a body lock, get like some really sneaky trip takedowns, took down Carriazo almost at will, showed some good boxing. You know, he still needed some work on his defense, but for a guy with less than 10 fights, you know, man, and his athleticism, he's also just kind of big for the weight class. You know, this guy is going to win a lot in the UFC. He's got a lot of stuff. There's a lot to like about Cejudo here. His wrestling is really good. His boxing's coming along. Chris Carriazo, tough guy, you know. Always very game, very resilient, but he just didn't really have an answer for much of Cejudo's offense, especially the wrestling. Hey, you know, Carriazo would get back to his feet when he was taken down a good amount of times, but didn't really matter, you know. With Cejudo, at this point, you beat a guy like Carriazo. He's that gatekeeper to the top, you know, the top of the division. Honestly, let's get Cejudo versus the winner of Benavidez versus Moraga. Let's no need to dilly-dally with him, in my opinion. You know, he doesn't need to fight mid-level guys. His wrestling is next level. His striking is coming along. You know, it's already pretty good. You know, let's just give him some of the higher up guys. Carriazo, you know, like I said, he's a good like gatekeeper type. Just keep him in that role. Like I said, there's a lot to like with Cejudo, especially if he gets a body lock clinch and whatnot. He can get you up against a cage. You know, there's a good chance that his opposition is going to the ground. Okay, on to the prelims. Ross Pearson knocked out Sam Stout in the second round. Here's the thing with Sam Stout. This guy's not there anymore, man. It's something I noticed for a while. He's just going through the motions. He doesn't always seem motivated. It's just he's fought for a long time, and he's been through some wars, and now his chin is finally. He used to have this granite chin. Now it's getting cracked a lot. He got knocked out by KJ Noons at a fight at 170, and that's the reason why that's kind of surprising. It's like, to me, that seems a bit, I guess, lazy. I don't know what else to say. Like that, you know, you're not even a big 155er. You're fighting at 170, you know. So, like, he's just kind of there to get a paycheck. I mean, he's been stuck in the as a mid-tier fighter for a very long time, you know. I mean, the guy has just been a perpetual lightweight mid-level fighter for the longest time. Well, Ross Pearson kind of shown that he's like somewhere in like the top 15 to 20 now at best. He's still a good fighter. He still has a good left hook. He'll always lose a guy like an Ally Quinta, you know. But there are guys he can beat, and at least he showed a lot better knockout power than he has in the past, especially as of late. But yeah, you know, Sam Stout, man, honestly, he got knocked out again. He's been in the game for a long time. He's a guy that probably should retire soon. He doesn't look, you know, he's still pretty young, but he's just been in the game for a long time now. I mean, if he wants to keep fighting, I guess there's some lower to mid-tier guys that he can find in the UFC. Wouldn't even be surprised if he gets cut. I mean, you know, and fights in like World Series of Fighting or something like that. It's just, you know, like I said, something that I've been noticing on Salt for a while. You know, it's like when he fought like Cody McKenzie. You know, it's like Cody McKenzie's super unmotivated. And Stout was just in like total cruise control. You know, it was just like, you know, he just did enough to win, but he didn't really do much else. You know. So yeah, that's the thing with Stout. I honestly wouldn't pick him to beat a good amount of UFC lightweights at this point. To me, he just seems like a guy that's not motivated these days. Pearson, you know, like I said, fight more mid to lower tier guys. He's still a good fighter, someone that you can probably make a name off of even. If he wants to fight prospects, that'd be cool. Give him like a Kevin Lee or something like that, you know? See what, you know, good test for like a young up and coming prospect or something like that if you want to do that with him. If not, give him some mid-level guy, you know? That bunch, you know, geez, who's there? There's a lot of prospects now. A lot of these mid-level guys are slowly but surely fading away in the UFC. But yeah, you know, just more mid to lower tier guys in the division for him. So right after that, last Theodoro defeated Roger Narvaez by TKO in the second round. You know, Theodoro is not technically sound. This is actually a case where cardio, pressure, just being in their opponent's face and being aggressive, like having that style really works. If Theodoro can get a more technical game, he could be a pretty solid middleweight. But he needs to work on some fundamentals in his striking and in his footwork. There's that one time he went for that kick and was just totally off balance and like, you know, he kind of like fell on his butt. But you know, it was enough against, and it's going to be enough against a lot of opposition. Theodore is still a terror in the clinch. You know, he's constantly working. That alone is going to get him wins against some pretty decent guys. Narvaez is solid, you know. Striking's not too bad. It's not the worst wrestler, but you know, Theodore is just after him all the time, and no matter how unorthodox he may be, and just sloppy he may be, he's always in his face, and eventually, you know, that's either gonna be able to keep up with that, or you're going to wilt. And what happens is eventually he's just kind of wilted, you know, or you know, you get broken down. Wilt might, it sounds a bit more insulting than what it is, but you at least get worn down, you know. With Theodore, though, not a bad middleweight prospect. Like I said, he just needs more work on the technical aspects of his game. You know, good size, middleweight, real physical guy. He should just get more lower to mid-tier guys in the division. Narvaez, not a bad fighter, you know, himself. Just more lower to mid-tier guys in the division for him. Next fight after that, Beneil Dariush defeated Darren Cruikshank by rear naked choke in the second round. You know, picking this fight, I thought Darren Cruikshank would outstrike Dariush. You know, I know that Dariush trains he's a Cordero student, trains out of Kings, and they do a high pressure style, you know. But I didn't think he had the tools to implement that style, and that's why I picked against him. However, proved me wrong, just like those Anjos did. And in a sense, this fight, you know, is actually a lesser version of Dos Anjos versus Pettis. You know, you got the guy with the unorthodox style with the crazy kicks and whatnot. Decent takedown defense. But yeah, dude, Dariush was outstriking Cruikshank. He was getting those body kicks in very well. So that was something that him and Dos Anjos was working on, because they were hitting body kicks very liberally, throwing them liberally, and they were landing. And Cruikshank, actually, you can tell Cruikshank is uncomfortable in the stand-up when he starts going for takedowns. That was a big mistake against Dariush. Man, shake the back, get the rear naked choke. Good win for Dariush. I've always been a bit up and down with him as far as being a prospect goes. But man, this is definitely a step in the right direction. If you're, his striking looked much improved. I liked his body kick. His ground game's already top notch. I think I was kind of down on him because of the loss to Ramsey Nijem. He got knocked out in that fight. I don't think he'd lose against Ramsey Nijem if they fought again. Just kind of a bump in the road because he didn't really have much striking, when he fought Nijem. Now it looks pretty solid. It's a good win for Dariush, just more like, let's kind of put him up there, let's give him some of those, give him like one of the hulking Brazilians, like that Elias Theodoro, Massaranduba, Leandro Silva. Maybe not T-Bow at this point, because I think T-Bow just T-Bows Dariush. Give him the winner of Mitch Clark versus Michael Chiesa, something like that. Just give him a big step up in a step up in competition. Dariush versus Pearson wouldn't be too bad either, with Cruikshank, this guy, there's certain guys he can beat, and there's certain guys that he loses to. He lost to McDessie, Martins. Is it Adriano Martins? Yeah, Adriano Martins, Beneil Dariush, Masvidal. He's a good fighter, but he's a flawed fighter as well. He does get pressured, similar to Pettis actually. He gets pressured badly against the cage, and that limits his kicking game. If you can put him on his back, he's still not that great on his back, off his back. I think Cruikshank is. I thought he's a guy that was improving, but I don't know if I see it anymore. I think he's going to be a firmly entrenched mid-level fighter at this point. Still a fun action fighter, and if he can fight some lower tier guy who he can defend takedowns against and get space against, he's probably going to have a highlight reel knockout. Fun action fighter, but at this point, I think that's probably his role in the UFC. Just fun action fighter. Next fight after that, Jared Rosholt defeated Josh Copeland by TKO in the third round. It was such a heavyweight fight, In the first round, Copeland was able to shrug off takedowns from Rosholt, but then Rosholt was able to get takedowns later on. Rosholt's striking, it's still not the most technical. There's one time he actually threw like a double jab right cross that looked pretty good, and then he went for a takedown, and he completed the takedown off of that combo. If there's more of that, then I think Rosholt could be something. Right now, he's like just a wrestler who likes to brawl. He doesn't exactly like to get hit too. And it's sad because he's actually one of the better prospects of the division. Copeland, despite having 2 losses in a row, he's actually not a bad heavyweight. I'd still like to see him in the UFC, just against some lower level guy. With Rosholt though, there's a point where his wrestling isn't going to take him. There's a point where his wrestling will only take him so far, and he's gonna need other skills besides wrestling to get him farther in the heavyweight division. And he does, like I said, he doesn't take a hit very well. So, no, just more lower to mid guys of the division for him. Okay, on the Fight Pass prelims, Ryan Benoit defeated Sergio Pettis by TKO in the second round. This is a bit unfortunate for Sergio Pettis because he was winning that fight really well up until that point. You know? There's just something about Pettis. This is not a first. Think the Axe Caceres fight. You know? This is guy kind of winning the fight. Lost it in the 3rd round. You know? Or at least doing really well, getting competitive. Lost it in the 3rd round. I don't know if he has a bad chin. I think he got dropped by Caceres, actually. Got dropped by Hobart. Hobart's not the greatest fighter out there or anything like that either. Gotta watch out for Pettis there. I gotta wonder if his chin is not that good. Technically, really good striker, you know. But like I said, he finds it. He found, once again, he found a way to lose. Like I said, not the first time. Benoit, he's not the most technical guy. He's tough as nails. He hits hard. Good scramble. Real good at the scramble. You know, I'm not gonna. You know, he's not like a great prospect, Ryan Benoit is, but you know, tough guy. Can still get wins in the UFC. You know, this is something more. You know, a lot of people are gonna say like, oh, he just got caught and whatnot, and maybe he did. But like I said, this is not the first time this has happened. And this is not the first time he's been dropped either. Against guys that he should have beaten, you know? Like I said, he got dropped by Matt Hobart in the 1st round. Got dropped by Caceres. Got choked out in the 3rd round in a fight that he was doing relatively well in. You know? There's just something about his game that is just missing. And I don't know what it is. Defensively, like, he's good at getting out of the way, but, you know, still takes some clean strikes. It's hard to pinpoint with Pettis because he was seen as something of a blue chip prospect, but now we have to, you know, derail that to stop, you know. Both of them, I mean, just more lower to mid guys of the flyweight division. Next fight after that, Joseph Duffy defeated Jake Lindsay by TKO in the 1st round. Great showcase fight for Joseph Duffy. Watch out for this guy. That's all I gotta say. He's not just the last guy to beat Conor McGregor by arm triangle in the 1st round. He's also beaten Norman Park and submitted him. Guy's boxing is solid. I mean, this is a guy that the finishing sequence was a head kick, and then as he's blocking the head, he goes for the body, a right and a left to the body, and drops Jake Lindsay. That is, you know, that type of, a lot of guys are just gonna pounce and, like, you know, start unloading on the head or something like that after a head kick. No, Duffy was still of a, you know, sensible state of mind to find openings and whatnot, and not just to unload. Watch out for this guy. There are also talks of him possibly moving down to 145. Didn't seem particularly small for 155 or anything like that, but he did look like he can probably make 145. Should be very interesting moving forward with him. You know, you can see that he has really good striking, but his ground game's good too. So, you know, he's got everything and youth. I think he's mid-20s, what, 26, 27, something like that. Watch out for this guy. He's good. Jake Lindsay, 3 losses in a row. All of them by finish. He should probably get cut at this point. His defense in the stand-up is a huge liability. And finally, Jermaine Randami defeated Larissa Pacheco by TKO in the 2nd round. This is actually the performance I've wanted to see out of De Randami. But this also kind of showed that, man, Larissa Pacheco is not ready for the UFC. She is so... excuse me. She is really sloppy. Really reckless. It's not technical anywhere, you know? Like, she's in the fight, but she's not really technical. Even if she takes her opponent down, I've seen her get, like, reversed because she gets over-aggressive and whatnot. Yeah, she has that win over Irene Aldana, But Aldana's improved since then and seems a lot more picture shots better, a lot less sloppy now at this point. So yeah, that's the thing. Pacheco just needs more seasoning. She's only 20 years old. But yeah, she can't get by being kind of athletic and being tough, you know, like, because that's all she has. Like, I can't really say, oh, she has great jiu-jitsu, she has great striking, she has great wrestling. No, she doesn't have any of that, you know. And the problem is, at least with Derondami, decent takedown defense, good striker, she won with a 1-2, you know. I mean, essentially just won with a 1-2, you know. It is, I liked what I saw of Derondami. With Pacheco, she'd actually be better off probably getting cut from the UFC, getting some more seasoning. Good one for Derondami, you know. She can fight like a Leslie Smith, Jessamine Duke, the winner of Juliana Pena versus Milana Dudova. You know, there's good opposition for Jermaine Derondami. So that's it for my post-fight analysis for UFC 185. If you have any comments, just leave them below. That's it for MMA for you. Thank you guys very much.